It's been a while, but something has come to my attention, and I wanted to talk about it. In particular, it's this new Substack article by an individual named Anna Kasparian, and the title of this article is called Independent and Unaligned, You're Right, I've Changed. And I wanted to talk about this because I've talked about Anna and her dabbling with transphobia in the past and whether or not she is doing a grift here or what is going on. And this article that she's written, which is more of like an introduction of what she will be doing in the future, so it's very brief, but it kind of like outlines things in a very silly and predictable way, and I kind of wanted to go through it because I am fascinated by it. So I will be reading her article, again, very short, and responding to each, point or paragraph that I think is kind of ridiculous. So to begin, independent and unaligned, Anna Kasparian. She writes, after Trump came onto the political scene, and especially after he was elected in 2016, the us versus them mentality immediately took shape. Anyone who refused to resist Trump was seen as a threat to the country, and I was fully on board with that mindset. I don't have too much of a problem with this in sort of like a broad sense, which is that, yes, people contain multitudes. Maybe if someone is a Trump supporter, you shouldn't be immediately angry with them or think ill of them. That being said, if someone identifies as a Trump supporter, that's probably some signifier that they hold some vile beliefs, and depending on your identity, they could be hostile towards you. So I get having reticence towards that group of people, which is why it's like this whole idea of like us versus them is and can be a kind of privileged position to be like, oh, we shouldn't have this us versus them mentality. But sometimes there are a them and they are violent and evil. Maybe you should be aware of that and protect yourself, preemptively preparing yourself for the bad that they can do to you. So it's like, I don't know why that's automatically seen as coming up with an us versus them is some sort of like sign of bad, or like you're not taking seriously the concerns of others who you might otherwise disagree with or something like that. Because it's not always just a matter of a disagreement. You know, you don't hear people often talking about an us versus them when it comes to, say, Nazism. You know, man, I really had an us versus them mentality towards the Nazis. That would be silly, because obviously the Nazis will probably want to kill you. And maybe you should be upset about that. I don't know. It's just me. I'm a little upset about that, okay? I'm going to be a little upset about the wanting to kill me. But moving on. It all felt righteous at first. But eventually, the tactics deployed to fight Trump became repetitive, boring, and ultimately fruitless. Polling shows that he has increased his support among Black and Latino voters despite wall-to-wall coverage on his unsavory, racist, or bigoted remarks. Several years of media raising alarm over Trump's threat to democracy has only resulted in a tight presidential race between himself and Kamala Harris. The truth itself might be boring and repetitive, but why would that be a problem? Like, the last part that she raises, the fruitlessness of it, that's more interesting to me. But her saying that it's boring and repetitive to call out Trump's racism, etc., is a problem in and of itself. Like, it could be a problem of society at large, but it also suggests to me that it's like, is Anna saying that it's boring and repetitive, therefore she doesn't want to do it? When it's like, I don't know, sometimes you have to go over things that are boring and repetitive because it's important or factual or truthful. You know, sometimes the truth is not exciting, is what I'm trying to get at. So it's like, why would you frame it this way? But then the question of fruitlessness, I think, is more important, right? Because even though it's true, maybe it has no effect, and therefore you're wasting your time on something that isn't working to convince people. Okay, And then she uses as, I guess, her evidence of it being fruitless, that polling has shown an increase in support of Black and Latino voters, despite the calling Trump a racist. And to me, it's like, that's not evidence of that of the lack of the fruit of that kind of argument. There could be many other reasons why Trump has gained the support of those groups that have little to do with, the calling Trump a racist part of it. I mean, I think if it was completely fruitless, Trump would just be like winning completely. I think a lot of people find him unsavory, and that is why he has consistently had a sort of like low approval. She goes on, I can't help but acknowledge that the only thing that was accomplished by resisting Trump was less understanding and more division among Americans. I personally became reluctant to challenge my side or engage with voters who disagreed with me. In turn, I became less knowledgeable about the people and world around me. I saw Republican voters as an evil monolith, and that was a big mistake. So there's a part here where I'm like, okay, so the problem was you, Anna. You perceived people as a monolith rather than, taking them in their nuance. I take Trump supporters in their nuances, Republicans included. They're full of nuance. Everyone is. But it doesn't mean that they're not evil. They do tons of things that are evil and bigoted towards other people. And it's not like, engaging in division by calling out the bad shit that they do. That's not division. They're literally appointing the judges that got rid of Roe v. Wade is a bad thing, and it doesn't sow division. I mean, it would sow division by pointing that out, but as much division sowed by pointing that out was caused in them doing it in the first place. It's just so asinine to think that, merely pointing out the bad things that someone does is not understanding them and sowing division. No, you need to point that out because it's bad stuff that they're doing. I don't know why this is so complicated. I mean, here's the question that she's not addressing in this whole piece so far, and she probably won't address ever, which is are there good things that the Republicans do? What are they? Are there bad things that the Republicans do? What are they? If you're not going to talk about them, what are we doing here? Then it just becomes a sort of Dave Rubin circle jerk where you just invite someone on for a dialogue and go, oh, yes, oh, what an interesting thought that you have. Oh, yes. And you're not even engaging with the substance of what they're saying, which is not trying to get to truth, right? Which we're going to see as part of what she's trying to say here. I'm going to try to get to understanding. I'm going to get to the nuance. I'm going to get to the truth. My evolution started in 2022 when I was sexually assaulted by a homeless man in my neighborhood as I was walking my dog. That horrible experience alone didn't change me politically, but the treatment I received from the far left and some progressives after sharing the story did. I often think of my own stances of wanting to abolish the prison system. This is something that I wrote my master's thesis on. And I remember at the time while writing it that I got pushback from some of the more center to the right-leaning people in my program, suggesting that, imagine a world in which someone goes and murders your entire family. What would you, Jody, want to do to that person? Implying that, I guess, having that happen to me would render mute all the sort of, nuanced arguments I make towards wanting to abolish the prison system. That, once it happens to me, I'll realize that, yes, I now have the personal experience, prisons are justified, lock those people away. And I always thought to myself that, no, I would hope that the arguments that I made in my master's thesis were sufficient enough and created enough willpower within myself that if something so terrible happened to myself, if I had that personal experience, that my arguments would still hold sway, because the arguments relied on the data and information that was available to me of the negatives of prison far outweigh the benefits. So I wouldn't just on a whim change my mind because I had something terrible happen to me. The facts and the truth of the matter would still remain. And it remains even in the case of Anna here, even though she pretends that it doesn't. That somehow she politically changed because something terrible happened to her. But that doesn't change the truth of the matter. Terrible things are still going to happen. But like, the facts remain the same. Like, nothing really changed, you know? The only thing that changed was her personal feelings. But that's not data, that's not truth. There's, you know, what else am I supposed to say then? Anna does write that it was not the experience itself that changed her politics, but the reaction of others on the left that changed her politics. But the reaction that she got from people on the left was to the policy prescriptions that she was advocating for after having this experience, as if the experience changed what she thought should be done now that she has had that experience. And again, that does not include the evidence. It was just her experience. But, I mean, the same argument I'm making can be made by how she's reacting to the audience that is criticizing her. Like, the mere fact of people criticizing you shouldn't change your opinion on what the facts of the matter are, or what the policy prescription should be. And the fact that she did change her mind on these issues suggests that it's like she's going on a whim here based on her personal feelings, rather than an expression of her trying to get towards some kind of truth. I was told that by publicly sharing what happened to me, I was stigmatizing my unhoused neighbors. Others accused me of feeding into racist tropes because they assumed that my attacker was black, but I had never disclosed the man's race. He was white. Now, I don't know how many people were actually doing this, so I don't have much to say here. Other than that, I know what's going on here is that there were more nuanced arguments being made against what Anna was saying regarding crime that she is ignoring here. And ignoring because it doesn't make her look good, right? It makes her look good to point out people who say, were implying that she was being racist even though she wasn't talking about race or something. She's characterizing this in a way to make other people look bad, which is indicative to me of a person who's trying to justify her appearance of a right-wing shift, even though, well, she's independent and unaligned. Sorry, I mean, I guess I'm aligning her when she doesn't want to be aligned. But but that's what's going on here. I don't know how much I want to believe that this happened to her. She provides no evidence of this happening to her. So not only did I suddenly see the flawed thinking of some on the left, I also witnessed their cruelty and hypocrisy in real time. These terrible traits that I had associated solely with my political opponents were obviously not exclusive to their tribe. I was stupid for ever thinking that was the case. Now, what she seems to be implying here is that she received some pushback, she perceives that pushback to be harsh, and she assumed that harshness was something that only the right had? Why would you make that assumption? I mean, I've seen everyone of every stripes be harsh. You know, being harsh in your condemnation of something is something that I think applies to everyone, you know? But it says nothing about the views you are being harsh in favor of, right? I mean, like, what this shows to me is that the left were, if what she's saying here is true, were harsh towards Anna because they felt she was in some way downplaying the harm of her rhetoric regarding people who are being accused of committing crimes, etc., right? So it's like, you could be harsh towards her for downplaying something that is very meaningful. That doesn't all of a sudden make you like the right, because the right is also harsh when it comes to immigration, based on no facts other than the feelings that they don't like brown people moving into their neighborhood. Like, these are totally different things to be getting harsh over. You know, the question is, do the people on the right have a reason to be harsh over this? No, because they're fucking lying and it's like nonsensical. Do the people on the left have a reason to be harsh about this? Yes. Because like there is an overzealousness about the prevalence of crime that is not based on the factual evidence that we have. So it's like, those are two different things that should be considered differently. But for her, it's like, oh, the mere emotion of being harsh is similar by both of them. So therefore, they're equally bad. Now, I think you could make the argument that maybe we should be extending more grace to, say, people who are on the left generally when they have bad takes. But I guess, like, on the flip side of that, you would hope that someone like Anna, who has been in the spotlight for a while now, would have more of a backbone to realize that, like, you have so many people talking to you that of course you're going to have people who react more harshly than others, because they have lived experiences that make them more prone to not have that grace towards you. But again, it seems to me that this is more of an excuse generating plan here, right? It's this idea of like, look, they were mean to me, therefore, even her clarification, some of them were mean to her. So therefore now she has a reason to see that there's some bad thing happening on the left, that now I'm politically unaligned because of it. When shouldn't you be extending some sort of like understanding or sympathy towards these people to sort of understand the truth of why they're upset with you? But of course, no, the sympathy is only towards those on the right, because the people on your side should just always be supportive of you, even when you say bad things. At least that seems to be the argument, or the sort of like mentality that she has towards people getting mad at her that are arguably on the left, because my guess is these are just people on Twitter yelling at her online, because the people that I saw on the left criticizing her were doing so in a very compassionate and thoughtful manner that she decided not to address at all. That doesn't mean everyone on the left thinks or behaves in the way this small group of lunatics do. Far from it. But it does mean that there are factions and flaws on both sides of the aisle, and no one has a monopoly on truth. I reiterate the same points I made before, which is that the harshness of your reaction has nothing to do with the truth of the matter, and unless she's going to spell out who the lunatics are and what they're specifically saying, then there was the insane reaction of one of my tweets in March 2023. And so here's the tweet. I am a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, a birthing person, or a person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You could support the transgender community without doing this shit. All hell broke loose after I posted those words. Most friends in left-wing media didn't bother reaching out privately to discuss their disagreement with my personal preference. Instead, many self-described socialists took it upon themselves to profit from conflict by publicly attacking me with monetized videos. They all exist in this space where you're making content, and that content gets monetized. But that should have no bearing on the truth or veracity of what they were saying about what Anna had posted. And I think Anna plays this game constantly where she doesn't address any of the criticism that she got for this tweet, which is that who was saying this to her? Like, honestly, who was saying this to her? No one talks like this. The only thing that she possibly was responding to was the use of this language in government sort of like programs. And in that case, it makes sense. If, like Anna suggests, that yes, there can be men that do get pregnant, then in government language, you want to say, birthing people, because it's inclusive of both trans men and non-binary people who can also get pregnant. Like, why would that be offensive? It would make sense if it were like someone came to Anna and said, "You, Anna, you're a birthing person." But she provided no evidence that that happened. And so people were critical of her, and her response to that was like, take a personal affront to it rather than address or listen to any of that criticism. And this is further ridiculous when you consider that she's trying to dismiss these criticisms by claiming that they were only made so that these people can monetize it on their channels. I made the criticism not because I was getting monetized. Guess what? I'm not. I made the criticism because I think she's wrong, but it's very easy to just, they're just trying to make money. They're the grifters, not me, the innocent, unaligned centrist. They're the ones that want to monetize it. Me, I'm asking for your donations for this new Substack, not because I care about money, not because I want to monetize this strife, because Anna Kasparian, I'm the one who cares about truth, not those people who want to monetize, but me. A smaller leftist YouTube show put out 5 separate videos skewering me about this tweet, while conveniently erasing the advocacy I had done on behalf of the transgender community throughout my career. They even went as far as drawing a link between my tweet and trans suicides, which sadly wasn't the most unhinged outcome of the debacle. If you're, say, a trans person, which I imagine the person she's referring to is, then this would be very personal to you. And if someone attacks you and your identity, which she's going to claim she didn't. She was so supportive of the transgender community. She insulted them and then got mad that people reacted to her insulting them over something that doesn't make any sense. Because again, no one was referring to Anna specifically as a birthing person. And if that happened, provide evidence, Anna. We're still waiting. But I don't blame a smaller leftist YouTuber from finding... I'm a smaller leftist YouTuber that finds fault in what she said. I made videos about it. I think that she is a reactionary that just doesn't like being told that she's wrong by people she perceives as on her side. It doesn't matter if we're on the same side or not, Anna. If you're wrong, you should be told that you're wrong. That's part of the dialogue you claim you want to create by starting this Substack. TYT's volunteer YouTube chat moderators quit over the tweet, and some reported me to human resources. An on-air transgender contributor even resigned from the company after being urged by online mobs and leftists to do so. Curious that not one of those shows hired her after she took their advice. I never apologized for the tweet, and I never will. It seems very weird to suggest that, the implication here is the Young Turks hired her in the first place, therefore aren't we so great? Aren't we the good people? And none of those other shows that criticized me, and after she left, none of them hired her. I don't think Benny left, and this is Benny, by the way. I don't think Benny left because she was going to work for other shows. She left knowing she was losing the job because she didn't want to work for a transphobic company, which at this point, more had happened, It wasn't just the tweet. It was the doubling down. It was the arguing with people. It was the transgender sports stuff. It was more than just this silly tweet. And so it's yes, people left. People were upset with her. And there was no expectation that somehow these other smaller shows with less revenue were just going to hire Benny because she took a stand. She took the stand knowing she was going to get... she took the stand in leaving without the sort of prospects of a better opportunity. So I mean, it's just so petty and silly. That whole experience forced me to come to terms with the intolerance on the left, and it allowed me to publicly reject the ideological shackles that kept my world small and less informed. All worldviews are gonna have harshness, are gonna have intolerance. The reason why you're on the left is because you don't agree with and don't like the things on the right. That's the whole reason why you have some sort of like ideological bifurcation, is because you hold a set of ideas and beliefs that I would hope to be true, and you disagree with this other group. I guess like the question of tolerance is like, how, to what extent do you like offer tolerance to another group of people if those group of people want to say, make it impossible for transgender kids to receive proper medication? If they're the type of people that want to institute a Muslim ban and prevent Muslims from entering the country, if they're the type of people who want to defend the statues of Confederates, like Robert E. Lee, who then, when neo-Nazis come to protest the dismantling of those statues, you say that there was good people on that side. Maybe we want to be intolerant to those people. It's almost like there's this like paradox that was created by someone named Karl Popper, where, if you become tolerant of the intolerant, there goes tolerance. What about that, Anna Kasparian? Have you read a fucking book? We're almost done here. She goes on. Today, I'm less certain and more curious than I was 4 years ago. I made humiliating mistakes while covering political news because I was previously unwilling to consider or understand the perspective of Americans who vote differently from me. Now that's just a failing on you. You could have done better. If you're admitting now that you were making mistakes because you're lazy and you just decided not to consider the truth of the matter or the facts, that's on you. But it seems to me that actually she was better before, and now she's like playing this like, we don't need to get into fact stuff. We're just in the high-minded, we're just at the level of ideas here, We need to have a dialogue about the ideas and never be harsh or mean to anyone and just constantly talk about these ideas. There's almost like someone who used to work for the Young Turks that left earlier that this sounds like, no?
And I have to say that my brain is still in recovery mode from taking in so many high-level important ideas.
I'm hungry for dialogue, a space for in-depth analysis, and a judgment-free zone. That is what I plan to do here. Every week, I will provide subscribers with 2 to 3 written pieces that dig deeper into the big stories of the week with the intention of finding truth rather than promoting a political side. Video posts sharing details on breaking news and political events. A weekly podcast beginning in November that will feature long-form discussions and debates with guests from all walks of life. Engagement with me in the comments section for paid subscribers. Join me and be a part of the dialogue. Blah, blah, blah. The one that I care about the most here is the very first point. 2 to 3 written pieces that dig deeper into big stories of the week with the intention of finding truth rather than promoting a political side. Which suggests to me, weren't you supposed to be doing that already? Like, she's kind of admitted it already in this piece, that before, when she was on the Young Turks and the work that she was doing there for years, she wasn't actually seeking the truth. Well, then what were you doing? Were you being a fraud then? Or were you just so stupid that you thought you were doing the right thing even though you weren't? And it leads me to believe, it's like, okay, if you weren't doing that before, how am I to believe that you're going to be doing this going forward? Because I feel no, confidence that you're going to be telling the truth after reading this article, since you downplay certain things, omit certain things that make you look bad. And your whole argument seems to be that, like, well, some people on the left were mean to me, and I thought meanness was only associated with the Republicans, so therefore now I think both sides are the same. How is that truth finding rather than promoting a political side? It sounds like you found a new political side, and it's the boring, high-minded, I'm a centrist, I take a look at both sides, and I weigh all the things, and I'm so free of constraints of political dogmatism. I'm so above it all. When you're just a fucking buffoon. That's what Dave Rubin does. Let's be real. That is the Dave Rubin thing. It's like, oh, I'm just hearing all these ideas. They're just ideas. Aren't we just talking about ideas here? It's like, why don't we actually talk about the substances of these ideas? Are these ideas true? Are they harmful? What do they mean? Etc. But you're just being like, oh, people were mean to me. Therefore, let's have a dialogue. Let's be part of it. Join me and be part of the dialogue. We're just going to have a conversation. I just want to hear out the Nazis, see how well they're doing. The point of this new project is the pursuit of intellectual freedom and open-mindedness. I want to nurture curiosity without fear of offending the sensibilities of loyal partisans. I reject arguments about the evils of platforming people who are considered too naughty to converse with. I want to facilitate dialogue. I don't know what my political identity or label is, and I'm not even sure I want to be pigeonholed. This is my effort in pursuing extreme honesty and humility in the quest for common ground and truth without the constraints of a tribal identity. I don't know why this notion of a tribal identity appeals to a lot of centrists. It's like this thing is, it's like they feel like they're constrained by a political identity, because if they say things that are wrong and people react, people who were ostensibly on their side react to them, that somehow this is because of tribes, when it could just be that the people are reacting to you because you're wrong. I want to really flush that out, because a lot of people feel that they can't be wrong, and when people criticize them, they move to the right. This is like the whole notion of the reactionary mind. Anna Kasparian is a reactionary. She was not a leftist in that sense, where if things personally happen to her, whether it is the assault or the fact that people were mean to her on social media, those personal experiences caused her to react by moving towards the center, then you're not actually engaging in, politics on the level of truth and understanding. You're engaging with politics on the level of feelings, and you're reacting to them without a sense of what the truth of the matter is. And I'm not discounting feelings. Obviously, feelings matter. I think having the personal experience of being assaulted matters. It matters to the discussion, but not, to the detriment of what the facts and evidence actually suggest about the prevalence of crime, or about the prevalence of unhoused people, or what the true solutions to those problems are. Something which you could address, but instead you're deciding to react to the people who are reacting to you for the solutions that you're suggesting that don't actually make sense, that actually are going to harm marginalized communities. And you think that you know better because you had a personal experience, and you're ignoring the data and the evidence, and you're a reactionary. You're a reactionary. You're a conservative. And that's fine. You can be that, and you're not going to be on my political side, but it has nothing to do with tribal identity. It just is what you are, Anna. To sum up, I think centrism is a brain poison. I think this idea that you can be above it, that both sides have equal complaints, and that you're more high-minded and intelligent if you don't pick a side and you're just in dialogue with both, because really the issue is all this fighting between us. I hate that. I hate that position so much. And it seems so obviously wrong to me. There isn't a both sides when it comes to, the Holocaust. There is no both sides when it comes to what is happening to the Palestinians right now and that ongoing genocide. It should be obvious. No? I mean, the side that is doing evil there is very clear and apparent. And you sitting there going, well, the people who want to commit the genocide, they have a tribal identity. And the people who are against the genocide, they have a tribal identity. And so therefore, I'm going to be above those constraints and just listen to what both sides have to say. I want to sit there and really listen to what the pro-genocidal people have to say and really just, take it to heart. And the thing is, like, you can, and I do think it's important, listen to the pro-genocide side, so long as you criticize it. So long as you point out that, like, okay, we've listened to it, here's why they're wrong, here's why the facts don't line up with their position, and here's why it's actually good to be against genocide. And if you don't follow up with that, having the dialogue is fucking useless. It's not helpful, and it just allows a pro-genocidal person to promote their bullshit opinions to whatever audience you bring to the table. Now, there's a question, is, like, Anna grifting here? Does she really hold this kind of centrist position? And to me, it's kind of irrelevant. She's going to be doing this harm regardless of whether or not she actually believes in it or not. But she's just falling in a long line of people who are engaging in a reactionary politics because they were called out for some bullshit opinion they had. And rather than actually listen to people calling them out, regardless of how harsh or non-harsh those criticisms were, she has decided that she is no longer politically aligned with the left, whatever the hell that means, because you don't want to be pigeonholed. Well, I'm sorry, I'm pigeonholing you. You're a centrist dipshit. You are a reactionary, and I think you're immoral.